Hello and welcome to the Advanced Age Role Playing Gamers podcast. I am Nathan. I'm one of your co-hosts, and I've got with me my other co-host,
Matt.
Did
you forget?
I want you to introduce yourself. You're important. You're special. You belong here. It's not just for me. So glad to have you here with us, Matt. And
I pay all the bills.
He does. He does. He's so good at
it's the only reason I'm on.
That's why I keep him. That and his boyish good looks. But I know we're rambling a lot here, but we've got some special guests with us today. We're actually outnumbered for a change, which is pretty awesome. We've got the folks from the Tabletop Journeys podcast and etc. Guys, why don't you go ahead around and introduce yourselves? I'm going to start off with Josh. Why don't you go ahead and get started?
Sure. So, hi, I'm Josh from the Tabletop Journeys podcast. And I love, first of all, thank you for the introduction and thank you for having us on. I love watching other shows start because it just reinforces how awkward our show start is sometimes. Yeah. And so thank you for kind of breaking the ice on that front. But yeah, no, I'm Josh. Tabletop Journeys podcast. I like long walks on the beach and non-alcoholic beer. So that's
I'm all about bringing the awkward, as my job here. And Lee Wanika, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Lee Wanika. I'm one of the three co-hosts of Tabletop Journeys. I fashioned myself the idea guy on the show as far as when we go to write and take and bring new products to the tabletop world. But for the most part, I'm the guy who doesn't particularly care for long walks on the beach. So I don't mind sitting at the pool in the bar at the pool on the beach. That's kind of fun. I don't want to walk too far to have to get to it. That's kind of That's kind of my
long conversations on the beach.
I'll talk a long time.
Those poolside bars, those are so great, and it's nice. You can stay there for 8 hours and not move and drink lots and lots of alcohol and just stay there, and nobody
you're in
thinks
the water,
anything
so
weird about it.
That's officially hydrating.
It just happens.
Yeah, I'm always amazed that no one ever has to go to the bathroom after all that time.
It's so weird.
Look, we're not here to give away all. We're not here to give away all of the secrets. Sorry about that, Cancun. Really sorry about that.
Matt's also my resident joke explainer. I thought I was hinting at that pretty well, but anyway. And last but not least, Glenn, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Glenn. I'm the fourth of three hosts on Tabletop Journeys. Obviously, there's only three of us, but I'm like, what am I going to say? I'm the third. All right, it was funnier in my head. That happens a lot.
It's fine. I laughed.
I am the art guy, and all of us do a whole lot, and there's a huge amount of creativity that goes into it. But between what we do on the podcast, just talking about what we love, and doing the things with the indie creators and the new games that are coming out, is honestly one of the favorite parts of what I've got going on in my life these days. So happy to be here, happy to be chatting with you all about it. And now we're creating content too, so even better.
Yeah,
keeping busy. So how'd you guys meet?
Boy, why don't you two start, because you two have known each other. Yeah, you two have known each other for longer than I've known you. So that's
7 years ago. No.
Not quite that many. You're only 50.
Actually, I think it's a little bit longer than 7 years ago.
No, the score is
Better
20.
do the math.
The score is 20, so 4 score would be 80.
Oh. Okay, so not quite.
I mean, we're on AARPG, but we're not that old.
Okay, so 2 score and several years ago.
Not even 2 score, bro. Like 30
close to 2 score. It was a while ago.
No. We have plenty of time. Let's talk about how many scores this was. We've got lots of.
Bring out your calculators.
That's right.
Let's read this out.
Anybody that wants a more exciting podcast, I have my paint drying podcast on the other channel. So.
Carry the
2. We met in Boy Scouts. I was 11 and he was 12. And we're now 49 and 50. So if you want to do the math for the scores, you're welcome to.
I'll have
all the listeners need to put that in the comments. You figure out the math, put it in the comments because comments help shows. So we'd love to hear what you have to say about our math.
I'll leave it up to my number one fan, my wife, who's also very, very good at math. She'll work this out.
Excellent.
But we'll get back to you on that.
But yeah, we were playing games together right off the bat. We were both already role players, and we played a lot of D&D and Scouts on campouts.
Yep. Guilty.
Yep. Yeah, and then Lewanika met. Lewanika and I met probably. I mean, it's got to be. It's over 20 years at this point, probably.
It's over 20 years.
30. But we met LARPing actually. Yeah.
LARPing.
You say LARPing?
Yeah. We did, yeah. So both of us used to run lots of like 3rd edition World of Darkness, like Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf LARPs and everything like that. We both graduated to that level of geekery. And so both of us are originally from the Boston area. And that's actually how we bonded, is that he was playing a cop from Boston who out of game I knew must be crooked because cop from Boston. And so, you know,
as one in World of Darkness.
Right. Yeah. And it was World of Darkness. Exactly. Right. Yeah. You know, and so we kind of like immediately bonded, and he was surprised that, you know, a short white kid in Maine said he was from Boston. It's like, oh yeah, no, I was born in Quincy. You know, that's, I remember he's like, okay, if you're from, like, didn't believe me. Right. You know, and he's like, all right, if you're from Quincy, then what do Quincy kids could do on Friday night? And I was like, oh, they jump the turnstile for the tea and head into the city, you know, because we're all poor, you know? And he's like, oh, you really are from Quincy? I said, yes. Me and my 5 brothers and sisters were all born in the same hospital. You know?
Yeah. Like, so you're speaking my love language now. Like, let's skid hop to school. Let's do some crazy stuff.
Yeah. So.
And then they're in Maine, but I'm in Connecticut, and that's how I met Josh. Was Lewanika bringing me into LARPing and coming up to Maine to join the LARPing scene up there.
Yep. And then remember when Glenn and I really, really kind of bonded. We were playing a D&D game with at Lewanika's table. And for your podcast listeners, so Glenn is about 6'17", and I'm 5'4", 5'5" if I'm wearing good shoes. And we were playing Dwarven Twins. Yeah, real good shoes. Yeah, we were playing Dwarven Twins, the Thunder Twins.
That was actually a racial feat.
Yeah,
at the time in the edition that was out, Thunder Twins. We could like sense which direction each other was in and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and then since then we were kind of floated around. Yeah.
Just to raise that level of geekery there. At that point, we were also, because Josh and I were both word nerds, building the Dwarven language together and writing in-game stuff in it. It was an exceptional level of nerdography.
They actually created an entire Dwarven alphabet and language, and were working on syntax when those games finally came to a close. I mean, they took it to a Tolkien level.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, like before you could like Google it, right? You know, like that was before you could just Google like, "Hey, give me words in Dwarven." You know, like that was a thing. So
that is very cool.
And it was amazing at our tables. Like, it just breathed so much life into the game that so much so that I still utilize some of the lore that they created with those characters in current games that I run 20 some odd years later.
We even did a stint in Dwarven poetry.
That's got to be like almost as good as Klingon opera, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Exactly.
You can't drop that bomb and not recite some Dwarven poetry. So you better go on your computer and open that fucker up and start reciting.
I don't have it.
I am sure that I've got it on one of my hard drives around here somewhere. I'll dig if I can find some, Nathan. I'll go ahead and send some to you to put in the program material.
We'd be more than happy to post some Dwarven poetry. Awesome.
So you know what's so great? Like, listening to you guys, like how you guys met, and there's so many parallels to like us because we're like the same age as you guys. Matt and I met in high school, and we played D&D in high school together. We played in college together, and we used to shit on the LARPers a lot. I remember that. We never actually LARPed together, but we used to shit on them a lot. So,
everybody
that's slightly different. But
well, it's funny about that because I tried it once. I did it down in Dallas, and it was a World of Darkness, and I was terrible at it. Like, it was so weird. I thought, I role play all the time. I've played World of Darkness. It was like a completely different. And I also used to do the, I guess it's not SCA, but I was in one of those groups where it was more D&D like I played a cleric and I dressed up and I had a little spell book and like I threw little foam balls,
So I also do the SCA also too. So that's
okay.
I was a heavy list fighter for a long time before I realized that concussions aren't that much fun. So yeah,
preach.
Yeah, right.
As the recipient of 11 separate concussions.
Oh, it's because they're both the size of a chihuahua, so they feel that they have to aggressively take on the world. Big guys, we don't have that problem.
I almost took out a tree once, and separate. Yeah, many of them were from sports. A few of them were from other incendiary situations that I found myself into.
I mean, he played semi-professional football for a little while.
I did play semi-professional football for a while as well. So I have back injuries, knee injuries. I got a whole bunch of things to go with it. In fact, and Josh has a football injury because he attempted to tackle me and separated his shoulder upon my breast.
Oh God!
Yeah, that was not one of my smartest decisions. I have made better decisions than to run shoulder first into Lewanika's gut. So that's
yeah.
That's why he learned from that lesson though. That's why he went heavy list so he could strap on armor when he
exactly
went back in there.
Exactly. And I should say, to paint that picture more fully, Josh described his height. Please understand that I am at least 2 inches shorter than he. So I am the smallest of the three of us in height. Yeah. I am the largest of the three of us in other dimensions.
Every other dimension, yeah.
But not at that time. At that time, I was pretty svelte. But it was definitely an exercise in what happens when the immovable object is struck by the moving force kind of thing. So
the unstoppable force,
unstoppable force,
the breakable force.
Yeah, exactly.
I was struggling coming up with that myself. So
I botched that badly, but 11.
It happens.
At our age, we can be. It's okay to be a little delayed sometimes, and we have excuses these days. But that's great. So there's a lot of. I see a lot of parallels. Like Matt and I played Step Brothers in one game too. That was actually one of our pivotal gaming moments. So it's kind of neat that you guys are still kind of gaming together all this time. So like very, very similar stories. So it's not just us. I felt pretty unique until going into the show, but now it's just I'm not even sure why we're still doing this, and
because it's awesome talking to all the people that you get to talk to, because that's one of my favorite parts. I mean, honestly.
So okay.
I was just going to add that the other cool thing is we have found in talking with other folks in the nearly 2 years that we've been at this, that while we're not alone in the way we came together, there are so many people that are just amazed that we've been gaming for as long as we have, and that we still game together, and we are in many respects still very like-minded about the ways in which we game. There's a lot to be said about the composition of your table and the composition of your game group. And we kind of maintain that over the years, and we've kind of come back together thanks to COVID and being able to do things VTT style, that we've been able to kind of get the gang back together and be able to move forward and game again.
But even with all those years, it's still fun because once in a while we still get to have our firsts. Like despite the number of years it's been, I just had Josh as a player at my table for the first time.
I know,
a couple of weeks ago,
which is awesome.
It was a whole lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll say that's one of the silver linings for COVID has been like our gaming. We actually have a Facebook group that's called was it once a month, whatever, because it was kind of tongue in cheek because we'd been playing in person for years, but everyone's got kids. People started moving. We had tried VTT like years ago, and it was just like it was clunky. It was, we all kind of got driven online as well, and we actually started the most regular stint since college, I think, of playing. We've been playing on a Tuesday night now for over 2 years straight.
Almost 2 years. Almost 2 years.
Because it started before the podcast. We started playing,
before
and then
podcast,
we had started listening to podcasts, and it was like, oh, well, why aren't we doing that? Right? Like, why aren't we recording all of our games? And so I wish we'd been recording our games for the last 20 years.
Oh yeah, no, we've had some doozies that could have done so well. You know?
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool, like how the whole TTRPG community. There's all these sets of folks that basically they swap players around and they kind of hire players for the APs, and I think that's cool. But it's such a foreign idea because I play these games because I want to play with my friends, with Matt and Tyr and Sean and Malcolm and all these other. I want to play with my friends, and it'd be cool to play with some strangers sometimes, but it's not the same thing as playing with people that, like, you have all the same inside jokes, everybody's boundaries and you know how to dance on the boundaries too, because that's when the real fun happens. So,
yep.
But it's cool.
I mean, I think that one of the cool, and we haven't even really got into like what the nature of our show is or anything like that,
right.
but we can crack that egg right open. Yeah. Two really cool things that have come out of two really cool experiences that I know that I have really loved over those last 2 years that we do on our show is, first of all, a series of games that we run with our Patreon subscribers, which was totally done as a perk to throw to our Patreon subscribers. Like, we run games, we tell stories, it's what we do. So invite them to come to our table to play games. Some of those games are stinking amazing. Like, it is so much fun playing with. We air a bunch of them, and so that's always great. And one of the other things that we've been able to do on the show is something that, to be totally honest, we stole whole cloth from another show called the RPG Academy, which we listened to for years before we started our own podcast. But basically bringing in game creators to run sessions of their games for us, and getting their kind of perspective on how the game is supposed to run, but also being able to go ahead and play games that, I mean, sometimes they're not even out yet, that kind of thing. And just the diversity of the games that we've been able to play, like, it's been so stinking cool. Like you can't bottle this. It's fabulous.
Right. And they know their systems better than we could ever know them, even if we tried to dissect their game on the show. So they run it. We provide the players, which are the three of us. And then a lot of times we'll pick one of our, regular collaborators. Like we've had Mike from 19 Hits the Dragon come on and play with us in a game called The Real Thing, which was fantastic. Doing a play test of them.
And those play tests are amazing because, again, we're seeing the nuts and bolts of these games as they're being constructed. And an interview is one way to learn about a new product coming out, but that doesn't beat them actually play testing. And you see their wheels turning as you get into certain situations. And you saw it at one level. And then when the game comes out and you get it, then you're going to see the finished product. So you can actually see the pieces that you were part of that changed and brought about these changes. So you're actually like part of the setup of the game. And that's pretty cool. Yeah. I mean,
especially when we get it out for an episode to be like linked to their Kickstarter or whatever, part of our work is right there helping make the product.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm taking notes, Nathan.
Absolutely. Because
we've done some interviews and they're always fantastic, but the idea, we've never thought to ask one of these creators to like run a session. That's genius.
One of the first things we did, we randomly reached out to the guys who make Against the Dark Master, because one of our fans in the Questions from the Audience episode sent in saying, hey, would you ever do other games besides D&D? My favorite is Against the Dark Master. I randomly reached out to them, and they're a company out of Italy, though one of their members does live in New York, and we ran an actual play with them. They ran the game. It was amazing.
We had Danilo, a podcaster who lives in England. He joined us in on that game, and amazing, like such fun.
So I know a guy who does that kind of thing. He Mitchell from Penny for a Tale. I don't know if you've run into him before. He ran the Necrobiotic Kickstarter and some other Kickstarters.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he does that. He owns a kind of a streaming company too, where they run the games that he's promoting, and so I'm sure we could do something like that. I think with 7 people, it's hard. We'd have to say, okay, that might be untenable.
Yeah.
But that's definitely a pretty cool aspect, a great way to for people to learn the games, because I think that's where a lot of people watch a lot of our stuff, especially like with the non D&D games like Twilight 2000. They watch our game to see how the game's played.
Yeah.
And we were running that, and when it was just out in alpha, just for Kickstarter backers, so you couldn't even buy it in the store yet.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a huge market for people. I've read about this game. I've got the quick start guide, but I'm not quite sure how the character generation works, and how does combat work, and how does travel work, and resource management. So when you're doing an actual play with the creator of it, you're getting not just the nuts and bolts of it and getting into the weeds. You're kind of getting like, why they designed it that way, which really can help a lot when you're trying to
a lot of
understand
behind
the
the scenes stuff. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, for anybody who is a game creator out there doing it effectively, it's helping you make, for a digital or paper product role-playing game, it's helping you make a game demo that anybody who's interested, who wants to know how it's going to play out, or any storytellers who just got it because your Kickstarter just finished and everything's been shipped and they've got it in their hot little hands and they're reading through it and they're getting ready. Well, they can go listen to a full playthrough before they try to run it. Also, it can, if you put out the full playthrough, because you don't want to give away all the spoilers. But.
Right. Yeah.
So like the guys from The Real Thing, they put out the first act, and then we still have the rest of it, and eventually they'll give us the go ahead, but we don't want to give it away.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of your podcast. You're bringing these creators in. You're running games with some of your Patreon subscribers. So what else? I've listened to a few of your episodes. So let's talk about what's your standard fare for your show.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we cover a huge gamut of shows on our. We love talking gamecraft more than anything else, though, and homebrew. We are homebrew aficionados. Like that is really kind of where. That's really where our bread is buttered. At the end of the day, we love bringing new stories and new twists on existing stories, and writing new mechanics and new rules and stuff like that. And so, really, I think that's kind of a theme that runs through everything that we do on the show. And kind of that, if you kind of take that core theme and then superimpose on top of that, we do book reviews, we do deep dives into. Into various other games and other mechanics and how other mechanics work and everything. And, we'll do even like deep dives into we do this whole series of like class discussions about the multiple classes in D&D and stuff like that,
Yeah, you just did monks.
So, yeah. And so, we just did monks. We actually have two more of the core classes of the 13 classes left. We have druids and bards left. We've been doing that series for a little bit over a year now, roughly one a month. But now we started kind of doing the class warfare episodes with them, which is kind of more than just the three of us bloviating for an hour and a half about a particular class, but it's also the three of us, and normally with a guest, rolling dice. We'll roll up tunes in that class with various subclasses and then throw them up against a scenario, which has been just a ton of fun. So, but yeah, I mean, our show for the most part is about the nature of gaming and game craft and stuff like that. So
we break down the episodes we've done into general playlists, which are available on our website. Like we have an interview playlist, so you can have all of our interviews with various creators, and that we have our character class rankings. So in addition to the discussions that Josh mentioned, we also do the subclass ranking. So we actually take them subclass by subclass, rank them on various criteria, including mechanics, flavor, our desire to play that character subclass. And then we have a wild card because, quite honestly, we like to fix some of the things because sometimes something doesn't show up quite as cool as you wanted it to be. So we've got a wild card in there to help with that. We do player information.
The number fudging card.
Yeah, pretty much. We do player information episodes where it's just here's some good info for players to have and bring to the tables that they go to. We have, like Josh mentioned, our book reviews, which is largely, but not just on WotC products. We have, and then we have our storyteller toolkit. We prefer the term storyteller to dungeon master or game master. That's our choice, though I know not everybody agrees with that term. We just find it because I'm not the master of anybody. It's not my goal to be somebody's master. It is, however, my goal to help tell a good story, and that's why I prefer that term. But so we have
stole
things
it from
in
World
there.
of Darkness.
Yeah.
I did. I stole it from World of Darkness.
Sure.
But I truly
we like
live
it
and
better.
breathe. But I truly
Since
live
we
and breathe
played,
that.
that's what we've called it since then. We've never gone back after Storyteller.
Yeah.
We never went back to Game Master.
Yeah, exactly. With those toolkits, it's really about how do you bring a better game. I think one of my favorite episodes was on backgrounds, though that's largely player focused. But one of my other favorite episodes is just about the three pillars. Our environmental one, because that's the often forgotten pillar of D&D. So we did a whole episode on ways to bring out the exploration and the environmental things, and then we did things on conditions, how to use them in your games, and we're looking to explain the things that get left out, those in between pages that people flip through in the DMG. We'll bring out that topic and then bring it to the forefront and say, are you doing this? Have you brought this to your game? Would that satisfy an issue that you're having at your table? How do you get better engagement out of your player? My guess is if you start involving some of these often forgotten areas of the game, you'll find that engagement.
And go ahead, Glenn.
But yeah, that's basically what you get with our podcast. But another thing that we are really into and really focus on a lot is collaborative world building. And you'll hear that come into the message of what we do a whole lot, and trying to build a world with our players, really getting 100% away from the us versus them, which has been going for a while, but now giving them some of the reins to help create too, because it takes some of the burden off of the storyteller, which is great.
Cool. Yeah. So I was going to say, responding to the other. So environment, that's great, because I know I had run the guys through an adventure. It was a homebrew. And so every single encounter, there was like the encounter, but then to make it more interesting, it was like, well, in this encounter, it's going to be more difficult because it's pouring rain and the ground's muddy, right? Or this encounter, they're in a really tiny tunnel. They can't swing their swords, right? So the monsters aren't super, super dangerous. Normally, you put them in a tiny little tunnel or you put them underwater, and suddenly. So yeah, I think that's. I remember reading. I still have my old the wilderness survival D&D from what was it, second edition, right? And the Dungeoneer's Guide, whole
First
books
edition.
were written to.
Yeah.
First, they were all
advanced.
Yeah, advanced. Yeah,
they were all whole books dedicated to those. The nuts and bolts. You want to really get into the nitty gritty about, how you're going to climb down that, crevasse. I think that's really cool.
Side note was I love when Matt does all those environmental descriptions, because that means I can do some pretty cool sound effects.
Yeah.
On top of that, it's neat. The thing you bring out, what Lee Wanika was saying about the things that people forget about in the DMG. There's a lot of stuff in there that nobody has any idea it's in there. Nobody ever uses, and they know the player's handbook backwards and forwards, but the DMG, there's a lot of stuff that gets left out, and there really are a lot of tools in there, and I like going back to the older DMGs too, and steal some ideas from those, because there's not everything makes it from ADD to second, third, and
sure,
and on. So
absolutely.
Cool.
I mean, we'll talk about this in a little bit too, but
yeah, we've used a lot of second edition and third edition forgotten material, quote unquote forgotten material, to kind of as inspiration fuel for our creative process.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, when we first started putting together kind of our first big publications, not so much, certainly over the last few months, I went out and bought a bunch of old Dragon and Dungeon magazines just for the old articles and stuff like that. Promise just for the articles, I swear. But those were all second and third edition publications when and a lot of that stuff was the homebrew of the day, right? People sending in stuff and everything like that, just looking for inspiration, reading into the origin of the Rakshasa, and see how they kind of became a race in the game in the first place. Some of that stuff was it's just priceless. It's priceless material. So,
there's a lot still out there. So, Yeah, I think that's actually a good transition point. So you've been talking about all this, the homebrew and kind of storytelling and game mastery and mastering classes and things like that. But you've been publishing quite a bit of material on the DMs Guild, and you just launched a Kickstarter. It's already funded. It's a multiverse of subclasses, which is
yes.
12 legendary subclasses for your next 5e campaign. So why would you do a multiverse of subclasses right now? Any particular reason you would do that right at this moment?
Well, surely it's because our last book was The Traveler's Guide to the Multiverse, and so really this is a sequel to our first book. No, that's obviously, like, look, let's the elephant in the room is obviously that Spelljammer is coming. We've known that Spelljammer is coming for a while. I was very lucky. Now that Spelljammer is out, I can say that I was involved in some of the playtesting on Spelljammer, so I've known that Spelljammer was coming for a very, very long time, even before kind of the world as a large knew about it. And now we have like new UAs coming out that are suggesting Planescape. They're suggesting look, I put on my tinfoil hat a couple months ago.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Insider trading.
We're not part of the. We've not done any playtesting on the next thing. However,
that's correct. I have not. Yeah.
Wizards of the Coast #TTJ. Call your boys.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're listening,
let us know.
Right.
But we're pretty good at reading tea leaves, so to speak. We fashion and consider ourselves fairly reasonably intelligent folk, and we have been in the gaming world for a very long time. The signals are fairly clear. All you have to do is follow the path, and you kind of get to one or two narrow options. So if we're off, we're not going to be off by much.
Yeah.
We got some luck on the timing too, because we knew Spelljammer was coming, but we had no idea when. It happened to drop right as Traveler's Guide to the Multiverse came out, and we have, I think, 3 different backgrounds in there that are Spelljammer focused.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like putting that out at the same time that Spelljammer was announced was purely coincidental, honestly. We didn't know when it was being announced, but we'd been working on that book for 3 or 4 months probably before it came out. And so, yeah.
So what's in it? Let's talk about what your Kickstarter backers, what are they getting out of this?
Sure.
Oh, that's the old book that we were just talking about.
Well,
Traveler's Guide to the Multiverse is the previous book. Going back to the Kickstarter now.
I'm still thinking about. I'm looking at the Kickstarter page right in front of me. So that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah. So the Kickstarter ostensibly was about the one thing that we didn't put into the Traveler's Guide to the Multiverse, and honestly, that's where the idea came from. Is that we didn't touch subclasses in the Traveler's Guide to the Multiverse, and so like, you know what? Let's rip off the Band-Aid. Let's do the thing, and we spit out 12 subclasses and started fleshing them out. And
we
then
didn't even plan 12 at first. We were only going to go for I think
3 or 6. Yeah, something like that.
To get our feet wet.
Yeah.
But once we got going, we just didn't stop.
Exactly. We just couldn't stop it.
And to be fair, when we were doing the older book, the thought was, hey, we should do subclasses. And I remember when we were looking at our self-imposed deadline for this book, I'm like, there's no way we're doing this.
No time to play test them.
No time to play test.
No time to play test. Like most of the stuff we had came from old notebooks, old homebrew games that we had already run. Many of the items were things that we had already road tested in our actual campaigns. Some of which were road tested on our AP. So there was like we had a lot of it down. And so it's like we can't add something that we don't have the ability to play test. People who we expect to buy this product deserve better than that. Than a rough guess. So the idea was when we started doing this, and we started with just a couple, we're like, if we do that, shouldn't we do a little bit more? And once we got to 6, we're like, there's no half measures with this crew. If we're in, we're all in. And so that's kind of how it came out. And subclasses, on one level, they're easy. It's easy to come up with a vision for a subclass. It is hard to then develop the features, to balance the features, because you're not only balancing the features within the core of the game so it doesn't break the rules of bounded accuracy, you're also balancing them with the other subclasses, because you have to make something that's cool and independent, but it can't be so cool that nobody would never play anything else. And so that's a very difficult tightrope. And there was a fair amount of back and forth with some of the powers. Like, that's really cool. That'll get people to take it, but that blows everything else away by so much. That's not fun anymore.
Why would I ever play?
Everyone starts playing that, and that's it.
You know, you're going back to the drawing board when Josh says, "No, that's like 2.5 feet in one."
Exactly. Yeah. I'm like the yes
to be fair,
and
he
guy.
said that
I
about
really
my
am.
stuff a lot, because
It's true.
I was speaking specifically of the first ability in one of the paladin subclasses that was removed from this book to be saved for Dragonlance.
Yeah. So talk about what got thrown out. From a creative process, I'm really thinking, because we've been talking to a lot of writers and game designers. So what's a step too far that said, you know what, guys, we can't do this. I'm putting my foot down. That's got to go.
The law.
It was really all about the open gaming license.
Yeah.
When you're working with DM's Guild, you get extra leniency, and you can use Wizards of the Coast branded terms like Dragonlance or Forgotten Realms.
Or
Eberron. You're writing outside, or Eberron. If you're writing outside of DM's Guild and you're publishing it as your own Kickstarter first, you can't anymore.
Yeah.
And 3 of our original subclasses were specifically designed for Dragonlance because it's about to come out.
Yeah.
And we can't mention Dragonlance in the book. And they would have been so lackluster if we diluted them down to generic, and we didn't want to do that.
Dragon Spear.
So we pulled the Dragonlance subclasses and created 3 more, and they'll still come out as their own Dragonlance publication on DM's Guild, so that we can give them their proper fanfare.
Yeah, and to kind of answer your question, most of the things that came out are not gone. They are. We have a process where we decide, here's the general theme, here's the overall. Go to your 3 corners, right? We meet back in an agreed upon amount of time, and we decide what stays and what gets kicked. The things that get kicked, they go into a folder, a Merriweather folder, for the next project. And so all of those ideas stay there. If you ever did that brainstorming example in 6th grade, those of us of our age remember, where you learn to brainstorm, and no idea is a bad idea, and you put it all up there. And even though one of those ideas was absolutely terrible, that's basically what we do on a Google Doc and Google spreadsheets and such. And then those things keep getting pushed, and along the way, they also continue to get refined. So, so far, 3 projects in, there are things that have been there pretty much since the beginning that keep getting a shade better. And when they come out,
for the right book.
They're just waiting for the right theme, the right book to come out, the right moment, and then they're gonna absolutely shine. Like, we have feats and feat trees and groups that have not been in either publication, but were effectively started 2 books ago. Factions and things like that. We're just waiting for the right projects to bring those out. Magic items that have been pushed because they just didn't fit thematically. They were perfect. There's, this book has a lot less things that got pushed, because most of this was written specifically for this, because we had just not done subclasses. But
12 subclasses, right? Yeah. The stretch goals is where the extra stuff that might stay or get pushed is going to come in.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say, is like, that's kind of the cool thing about the way, if I may be so bold as to say that what we're doing is cool, is that, we started, the subclasses were the offering, right? And that's because, like, that's what we started with. And depending on where our stretch goals get, we've got backgrounds, we've got magic items, we've got feats, we've got adventures, and we've got maps, all kind of lined up to go into this book as we hit stretch goals. And so that's kind of like, that decision kind of informed a lot of different things. It informed why we're running the campaign for longer than your normal Kickstarter. I mean, we ran for like 50 something days. We didn't go for the full 2 months, because we thought, that was crazy, but figure like 50 something days. And that would be enough to go ahead and really be able to hit a lot of promotional windows and make sure that people are seeing the Kickstarter and able to get in if they want to and everything like that. It also, informed kind of the decision about the way we priced it a little bit, is that really we priced it for people that wanted the subclasses. $12, 12 subclasses, a lot of parallelism, but also, like, all backers get all stretch goals, right? So if we get all of our stretch goals and we write basically a full-fledged book with adventures and maps and everything like that, you still get all that. And on top of that, we also offered community copies, because one thing that we were very cognizant of when we were kind of planning the original was, we're doing 12 subclasses and we knew that our price point was going to be like in the $10 to $12 range, but we wanted to make sure that price was never the reason why somebody didn't back it. Mm-hmm. So we tried to go ahead and figure out like, well, maybe if they only want like 3 subclasses, we can do that for a lower price. That got super messy. And ultimately at the end of the day, it's like, we were pretty confident that we'd be able to go ahead and get funded, and that we were going to write the book. And so it's like, okay, so if we offer community copies, if you back, you can pay a couple extra bucks to get something put into the community copy bin. And then the community copies are basically 50%. So if the price point is the thing that's stopping you, there's an option for you, and that was something that we really wanted to go ahead and make sure that to I don't know, give people the opportunity to back it and to go ahead and get their copy and have their fun, even if the price point at $12 was too much. So,
That's nice. So people can contribute and it actually can reduce the cost. That's nice. It's like a sort of like pooling in, because you're right. It's easy for maybe some of us later to be like, oh yeah, $12, no problem. Right. But when we were young, getting into gaming, right? Everyone's like, that's why one person would buy the book and you'd all pass it around. It's or you get someone who works at like the bookstore to get a discount or something, right? So no, that's nice. That's a good way to give back to the community.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also that's also one thing that we're really big on too, is that, the community of role players that we are part of, the community on Twitter that we're part of, the community of podcasters that we're part of, that's a really big deal to us, because we have got over the mumbledy years that we have been playing, we have got so much from our friends and from our co-gamers and everything like that, like the community is a big deal to us. And so we wanted to go ahead and make sure that, on some level, this is about people going out and listening to our show and buying our stuff and playing with our things and everything like that, but on another level, it's about, building the community and giving back to the community that's given us a lot. So.
Right. Nice.
Yeah. So you're funded for the 12 subclasses for $12, which is great. Yeah. So you've got, backgrounds coming up next. Any kind of sneak previews of the kind of backgrounds you're thinking about including in the package?
Sure. So go ahead. Yeah.
You go ahead.
Yeah.
I've fully written one. That's the only one I specifically have ready to teaser. I have other ideas.
That's the one that I was going to go to too, and it's all yours. So go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we're just gonna like two Canadians at a revolving door. I'm telling you.
No, you.
After you, sir.
So the first background that we've been working on is one called the Sleeper Agent, which again, so if you think about the kind of the structure of the book, the subclasses are divided into like 4 categories with 3 subclasses apiece. And so there are 3 sort of like wild subclasses called that are called the Outlanders. There are 3 kind of urban subclasses that are called the Metropolitans. There are 3 that are based on a homebrew, like a high fantasy campaign that Glenn is writing. I don't know. How would you call it?
But be a domain of dread, I believe it's going to come out. But yes, it should be a setting with a domain of dread, and then eventually more to follow.
But it's called The Land of the Boiling Seas. And then the 4th one, the Shadow Dwellers. Yeah, so this is one, again, that was kind of based on some lore that we revealed in the Traveler's Guide to the Multiverse, became this extension of these like shadowy magic users, a warlock, a sorcerer, and a cleric of prophecy order called the Shadow Dwellers. And so we kind of have like these 4 groups within the subclasses, but the Sleeper Agents are attached to kind of the Metropolitan. So there's one of the subclasses is the Ruffian. It's a rogue subclass. That's basically the shadowy cut purse kind of like street thug sort of subclass. And the Sleeper Agent is sort of attached into the Metropolitans as kind of like the urban intrigue kind of character. So
that's pretty cool. So you've got a lot more. You've got magic on down the list. You've got magic items and feats. adventure hooks, maps. There's a lot to look forward to.
We love feats.
Very low barrier to entry here. Now, I'm going to put you on each on the spot here.
Oof.
So I'm sure you worked on all these together, but I know how people are, and sometimes when you're creating something, you really kind of feel like it's your baby. So
sometimes
out of these subclasses, I'm going to start with Josh here. Which one is your baby?
Oh man. Probably the Warlock, because again, so that was based on, it's really an extension. So the Warlock, the Pact of the Sleeping Shadow is an extension again of some lore that we revealed in the Traveler's Guide to the Multiverse. And it was a bunch of lore that like I'd written, because I'd written this like set of like magic items. And as Glenn was reading them, he was like, yeah, these are great, but I have no idea what the story is behind them. Like, I need more lore sauce on this burger, like that, and so I kept like throwing lore in there. He's like, yep, okay, almost more lore. And all of a sudden it became this huge like lore bomb in there. And the Warlock very much kind of was an extension of the lore that was revealed in that book. So that one was kind of the first one that for me really kind of, I think it was probably the first one that I wrote for the new book. And so it was very much like, yep, okay, this is one that I know, this is one that I feel. So yeah.
Okay. Leonika, how about you? Which one's your baby?
I would have to say the Beast Mind Ranger. It is
definitely that is your child.
It is something that has been in my soul since one of the very first games of 5e I played. I actually played a ranger, was thoroughly disappointed with the way the class worked. I had a great time playing the character. I did the things that I wanted to do eventually, but I just felt that the mechanics of the ranger really let me down for what I was hoping to have and what I was hoping to find. So I would say the Beast Mind Ranger was definitely the thing that answered a lot of those questions for me. And when I mentioned earlier about going back to older editions to get the things I want, I pulled thoughts, inspiration from the Psionicist's Handbook, second edition, and the various kids. And I pulled inspiration from the Ranger's Handbook. As well as even a few odds and ends and concepts from just even first edition Rangers and games that I played in homebrew when I was 13, 14 years old, because I just wanted a Ranger to be cooler than they felt. My own personal quibble with the Rangers, and though I understand mechanically why it works, so I have no qualms with why WotC did what they did with it. But I dislike having the creatures that Rangers get be summoned spirit entities. That doesn't drive my creative process. I wanted I grew up on Beastmaster. I want Mark Singer with Kodo and Podo and to be running around. I want
that's Beastmaster the movie, not Beastmaster the subclass.
We got you. We know.
And certainly not Beastmaster the television series.
But it's so funny. The minute I saw that, I kept thinking that's the movie I was thinking of. Like that's what you as a child you're watching that, and that's what you want to be.
There are a lot of Podo
right?
and Kodo references while we were working on it.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Sorry,
and so interrupt. For me, I wanted that aspect of it of a character truly bonding with an animal. And so this started with that concept. And so because there's all these mechanics for summoning spirit creatures and so on and so forth, in order to differentiate, I'm like, well, there's got to be a different way to do this, right? Since they've pretty much defined that you cannot do this normally. There's no training, there's no skills, there's no natural element. I wanted everything with the beast mind to be explained by a power, but not be a power that people would notice. So the beast mind is a psionic ranger, but almost everything they do doesn't appear like magic. He doesn't do flashy magic. He connects with things, and then they have a better relationship, and then he can do different things with actual animals, and that connection can grow stronger over the various life of the ranger. And I won't give away too much more than that at this stage, but I will say that there was a lot of back and forth to get that to sing just perfectly and not be overpowered, because that was one that was very easy to overclock. My method is write more than you're going to be allowed, and then work with these two guys to help me pare it back to something that's going to be playable and usable, because you want it to be cool, but you also don't want it to get the ban hammer. So you have to work. You have to do that.
So much paring back. But it really is, and Glenn, I'll let you go in just a second, but really the Beastmind is such a fabulous combination between like a classic second edition Ranger and a Psionic. It's so good.
So I gotta jump in here. So Lee Winika, I'm gonna have my Jerry Springer moment, and you are the father. Just to hear you talking about this Beastmind with that much passion and energy, there is no doubt in my mind that you love that subclass. So, that is your baby.
I will play this all day, every day. That's all day, every day.
All right, Glenn, how are you gonna follow that up?
So I'm gonna cheat and do two.
Oh, okay. All right. Twins.
He's gonna double down.
I'm gonna start with the one that truly is my baby. Like, this is the first subclass I ever wrote. It's been building for a very long time through story and world building, because I've run games in the Boiling Seas. I was writing a journal style story about a character in it for a while to help with world development, etc. And what's funny is it's a bard subclass, and anybody who knows me, I've hated bards for probably 40 years of my life. It's only been like the last few that I've kind of begun to accept them, right? And part of that's because I like the 5e bard better.
He loves bards.
And I used to always be cursed with the party member when they played a bard that played the frou-frou one with a giant feather in their hat, who never did a damn thing but cry and watch us die while they played the violin. Okay. So I used to have an intense hatred of bards. In fact, at one point, Lee Winika insisted that he was going to play a bard-like character in a Rifts campaign, so that entire world ended, and everyone died, and we had to start again.
See what I mean when I say the
bards at my table, but
the ban hammer?
Yeah.
But it's the Bardic College of Correspondence. And it started as a cross between a way to establish a mail system in a kingdom and a way to kind of come up with, all right, it's kind of inspired by the play Hamilton. And it's a reminder to me of the critical role that not singing, prancing bards, but wordsmiths played in history. And during the age of all of the letters that were constantly being written, that was the main form of communication to fight the government. And from Ben Franklin to Alexander Hamilton, George Washington, all of these people wrote letter after letter that shared the common man's perspective, even though it was written much more eloquently than that, and what the nation needed. And that's part of it. So they're called correspondents, and their bardic ability is speechcraft and argumentative writing. And they create the mail network that goes throughout the kingdom. So they're also seriously a bard of the people. They're out there not just going to, the good sized towns where they can play in the tavern, but they're the far traveler bards who go to that tiny hamlet in the mountains and perform at the festival or somebody's wedding. But also all the children dance in the streets as the gleeman comes into town, and they're bringing the mail, which is a huge thing. That's all right. It's a little Postman inspired too from the movie with Kevin Costner, and that one is my baby. It still needs some polish. I'm not done with it, so I'm not going to try to wow you with features. But
I got like a Jane Austen type vibe there too with the correspondence, but. Yeah, and what's your number two subclass?
My number two was, why isn't there a druid of the sea or waterways? For the love of monkeys. So I said, I'm going to fill that void with the circle of seas and lakes and seas. I'd have to look.
Lakes and seas.
With the circle of lakes and seas. And I just absolutely love the way that subclass came together, right down to its 14th level Apex Wild shape ability, body of water. And I think that its abilities are hot and people will love them. and I'm hoping it won't get the ban hammer because the last ability is solid. But I mean, we're talking level 14 by this point. But I was very, very happy with the way it came out.
Sort of like a summoned Aboleth at level 20 or something like that.
Exactly. Right.
No, not quite like that.
Yeah.
But
probably better that
way. Right. Yeah.
I see where you're going with this, and I could see with this so early in the campaign, you've got a long way to go.
We do, but
you could definitely reach all those stated goals in that much time, especially once Spelljammers start shipping and people want to say, well, what else is out there? So
where can I go has a lot to do with how we plan this and separating these groups and putting the right classes in the right groups and pairing those up. 54 days is a lot for a Kickstarter. But what it allows us to do is really fine tune the playtesting. The principal writing on nearly everything is complete. As far as the subclasses, we've done our first and second drafts on these. We've been through that process. We are starting our playtest phase now. By the time the campaign ends, we'll have completed most of the playtesting, if not all of the playtesting on the subclasses.
Will be done on the subclasses by the end.
That allows us. The only thing we're going to be doing is fine tuning the stretch goals, and basically, as we meet a stretch goal, we're going to get to our second drafts of those items. A lot of first drafts, or at least outlines for the stretch goals, are already in place. Some of them are actually already complete, so we know kind of where we're going with things. We know where we are. It really is a matter of we picked something that was going to give us the time to be able to complete the project reasonably as soon as we're done, so people aren't waiting 6 months or a year for this Kickstarter. Like we back Kickstarters frequently and fervently, and there's something to be said of some of the Kickstarters I back on the regular. Ryan Wolf at 0 Point, he does a lot of sci-fi ships and stuff. I think the longest I've ever waited for something for one of his Kickstarters is 3 weeks, and I've got a map and minis in hand. It's like that, and obviously it depends on what you're setting up and what you're doing, and we want to structure it. I'm not making that as a specific promise at this point, but we have our goals in mind, and we are set to deliver, relatively speaking, rapidly upon completion of the project. And I don't see anything that will get in the way of that.
I was going to ask, so is your products primarily digital?
At the moment, these are all digital,
That's what I was wondering. So one of the things that we heard from some of the folks we talked to is like the old traditional sort of, the paper, delivered products. They're the ones that, with a lot, we've all heard about the supply chain and all that. And I know Nathan has a problem about Kickstarter. He's got a real problem. A lot of Kickstarters, but
I feel
significantly long times. and I just think it's really amazing. So things like the DMs, the drive-through RPG, all these systems of like delivery of digital products really reduces the cost to production. Lets you get out to a broader audience automatically, and like you said, fulfill the Kickstarter much quicker. And we all still buy our hard copy books still when we can.
Totally.
Except me.
Mine's gone all digital.
We're trying to go downsize to get into an RV. We're about to go on the market. So I have a small shelf of core books, and everything else is online.
We just moved too. It's a challenge.
Lee Winneke was the beneficiary of a number of my not staying with me.
I now own a Batleth. I have
true. That's my wife's Batleth.
I have a Bajoran badge. I have 3 copies of the Palladium Player's Handbook and 2 copies of the Palladium DMG. Riffs DMG. which allows me basically whenever I run a Rifts game, even if I'm running with people who have never played before, I now have books to pass out, so everybody's got one at my table.
This guy.
That's we could have a whole nother hour or two. I love we love Palladium in its time. We don't play anymore, but we loved it. And I ran a Rifts campaign. It's probably one of my favorite things I've run. Although I will say I've never played on Earth. I own all the books, but I've never played a game on Earth.
I always played on
all
Earth.
of my thing I ran. Yeah, all my stuff was the 3 Galaxies.
Oh,
I did big space opera kind of thing.
All I ever wanted to do was have a space jockey character, and I'm all about the 3 Galaxies and Phase World.
We've always gone back to
stuff.
Rifts too.
Yeah.
I mean, because you can do anything there, and that's how I would sell it to players. That's how I got my wife to play. And a couple other brand new players were in that game. Lee Wanika ran a spin-off campaign from it. This was just a few years ago, I guess 10.
Yeah.
Old.
Yeah, one of our first interviews was with the what's his name, the guy who took Rifts to Savage Worlds, and he was doing the new Atlantis
when we talked to him. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and I tried. We did Rifts. So when we ran it again 20 years later, I ran part 2. We tried the Savage rules. I like Savage, but I didn't. It was interesting. It didn't. And then I was going to try D20 Modern, but I ended up going with Starfinder, and mixed results. I know he hates. I like Starfinder. He hates Starfinder.
I love Starfinder.
I think it too.
Their ship combat rules are amazing. I think they're fun. Right. They're slick.
He's going to kick you right now. Hold on.
You know what, I am completely with you. I think I don't know what it is, but like a lot of my players. I'm actually listening to a podcast right now where they altered the AP. They're doing one of the where the players like begged them to not do any more Starship. I love their Starship mechanic. It involves everybody. Like it's. I'm down with it.
We're working on like a rework of the nautical ship combat concept, and
for
some
5e?
of that has been considered from that perspective, because it's the best.
Yeah, we've toyed around with getting the Starfinder concept into 5e, just so everybody can be a piece of it. Because that's
that part
that's missing.
So that part, I like, but I like it more narrative, like the way the Star Fantasy Flight Star Wars does it, where like everybody has a role, but it's more narrative. When it's more, it feels like you're playing one game, and then when you go to Starship Combat, it feels like a completely different game. You're not playing anything anymore. It's
like a tabletop game.
Yeah, it's a board game all of a sudden. So that's my personal take. But
there's nothing wrong with a mini game in a game.
But it feels so disconnected.
It's like
it's been done. Look at Birthrights. That was a mini game laid over the top. Oh, you didn't like Birthrights either?
No.
Can we kick him?
Yeah, I know. So he is. So he doesn't like Starship Combat, and then I pulled
I'll get my boots.
So I never played Kingmaker. I guess
Yeah.
Pathfinder has a AP called Kingmaker.
Yeah.
So I never played that, but I did something similar, which he often. Well, he didn't mind so much. So I found a really cool like third party guy who built this thing called like Star Empire. It works with Starfinder, but it's basically the concept of Kingmaker, where you're building like a kingdom. But it's the science fiction version where you build an empire and you actually have like colonies and you put in and I loved it, but it was a little bit more bean counting than a lot of our players wanted, right? Because we had one player, our friend James, he was all in it, right? We had our spreadsheets and everything. It was like, accounting, but
I think a lot of people wanted Firefly instead of empire building. So
that would be kind of cool though, to go ahead and like build an empire on one side, right, and then have like the rogue Firefly ship who's kind of trying to stick it to him, I think that'd be that's a really great story.
But, actually, I could have another hour show where I can talk about all the things I hate about Starfinder. I'm happy to have that conversation with you guys sometime.
And Matt, I will get you Ryan 0 Points info, because his maps he actually come with Starfinder ships designed. They're made for the Starfinder rules, and they're absolutely brilliant. Absolutely,
definitely.
But so that's this is like one of those great tangents, and I'm all like jazzed up now, and my heart's pumping kind of fast. I might need to take some aspirin here in a minute.
Yeah, slow down.
Brought to you by the people at Bear.
Exactly right.
I mean, funny enough, the way that your mic is shaped and just peeks up into the side of your camera there, a couple of times I thought it was an oxygen tank.
Oh, yeah. Well,
You're not showing what's hanging off.
Nice.
His nuts fell off, guys.
That's where the hook for the Band-Aid goes in the G.I. Joe, or the rubber band.
Right.
Yeah.
There's in the hook at the top of his nuts.
Oh shit. Oh, this is great. But so anyway,
So our book.
So I think you've already funded this thing, and you're well on your way to do a lot more. Hopefully, people will see this, and they'll last the whole hour and whatever we end up doing here.
We're pretty entertaining. It'll be all right.
Yeah, I'm entertained, so I'm going to laugh my ass off when I'm editing this. But
excellent. That's the best kind. Isn't that the best? Like when you're actually when you have a show that's like when you're editing, like it's the absolute best. No, it's just, and how good it is to do editing and realize and like hit something that's really funny. Yeah. Like that's like the number of times that I've just laughed at myself when we're editing, like,
sometimes
that's too funny.
Messages. I love it when he does. He's like, oh my God.
Yeah. Or sometimes it's like that's too funny to make it into the show. Actually, we need to go. That's going in the blooper show because Glenn just walked up and Glenn just stood up without pants on. So that's making it into the blooper show. That's
we turned some of that into like Twitter bait, but we're setting some stuff aside because we might do a Patreon at some point. We're doing this for fun, but it'd be nice to have some of the expenses covered. But anyway,
it is.
So I did have a question that I wanted to get to before we went off into Hate Starfinder land. But
wait, before you ask your question, can I say one thing?
Yeah.
You can do it for fun and still lessen your expenses.
That's true. That's true. People keep telling us that you're not.
You have our permission to do that. Exactly.
So we're having a blast.
With
to quote Ben Affleck, do you see the smile? Ear to ear, baby.
Oh shit!
All right, your question.
Anyway, so the one bookshelf, DM's Guild, drive through, and Roll20 thing. So you have some stuff on DM's Guild already.
We do.
Is that going to affect? Is that going to make things better for you or more difficult? Are there more rules you're going to have to comply with to make stuff fit into Roll20? What's that going to do to what you guys do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And
so
I wish that we had an answer. Yeah.
So we've not tapped into Roll20 yet. We have pretty much stayed out of, even though we use VTT a lot. We're big users of D&D Beyond. Love the collaboration with WotC and D&D Beyond. It has so far only improved the overall experience and seems like it's going to continue to do so. There are shadow concerns that we'll see how things develop as time goes on. But at the end of the day, I think that's a good move. As far as Roll20, we haven't tipped into that realm yet. We have had some inquiries. We've talked with a few folks, but no deals have been made. No bargains have been struck. We haven't brought our products there. The DM's Guild license will, now that they're with them, will make that easy to move things there, as long as the open game license that DM's Guild enjoys stays the same for both companies. If that changes, that would be no different than trying to sell a product elsewhere. We'd be banned from using Spelljammer as a name, Forgotten Realms as a name, and so on and so forth. So we really need to see how the legalese plays out. Everybody really needs to do.
If the contracting between WotC and DM's Guild gets cut, everybody loses out. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think WotC is cutting ties. I think they just had to back the current technology horse.
Yeah.
Right. DM DM's Guild's been around for a long time and they've already made their money there. VTT is the way that it's going right now.
Yeah, and people don't want to buy the product 3, 4, or 5 times. And, they already have to buy it on Beyond, and if they want the paper copy, and then you go to Roll20. Yeah.
Yeah, if WotC didn't buy DM's Guild, or not DM's Guild, if WotC didn't buy D&D Beyond, they were going to need to make their own if they wanted to get into that space and have people be able to host their games and run their characters. That's where the money is right now.
Yeah, and they try to have a different third party at some point, and then that kind of anyway. Yeah,
they went with back in 3.5. They went with the company that did StarCraft, Blizzard, and then that deal fell apart in the middle of 3.5. So as opposed to what was promised when 3.0 came out. And that beautiful GUI interface that came with those, I still have that, by the way. It's amazing.
Friggin' eTools.
And then they left us with eTools, which eTools got a lot of flack. And I will say this about eTools: I figured out, and I am a computer novice, how to hack it so I could homebrew stuff on eTools. And I to this day am better at homebrewing eTools than I am at homebrewing on D&D Beyond. But I am pretty good at D&D Beyond. So there are just a few things that you can't necessarily hack on D&D Beyond or homebrew on D&D Beyond, which makes it challenging. And so whereas everything could be redone, like classes from the ground up, levels from whatever to whatever were there. So basically it was a little more open as far as your ability to homebrew as long as you took the time to do so. Unfortunately, that's not there with D&D Beyond. I'm hoping that we get better homebrew rules or a better GUI interface for making homebrew than we currently have. Who's to say whether we will or we won't? If it's just what it is, I'll get by. It's not going to cause me to not get the product, and it's not going to cause our players a great deal of difficulty as far as them being able to use it. And that has been part of our discussions at various times when we've been building powers or features. I've said, or it's been said in our discussions, hey, that's not really going to work on D&D Beyond. So if the bulk of our players are using that tool, that's going to be very challenging for them. Is there another way we can do X, Y, or Z? And so that does come up. We are trying to be forward thinking in how we approach the project and all of our projects. We want things to be able to work in as many avenues as possible and as easily as possible.
Yeah. Perfect. That's a great answer. I mean, it's that's going to shake things up in the VTT space, because I know that the Foundry and there's a few others that some Owlbear or something that's
Owlbear.rodeo, which we use a lot. Yeah.
We're
a
big
great
fans
light
of Owlbear.
version. Yeah. Huge fans of Owlbear.
Yeah. I haven't even tried that one yet, but
you should.
I will. All right.
In terms of a light framework that's easy to use, easy to understand.
Yeah. It doesn't have the bells and whistles that Roll20 has, but it's really great.
Sometimes you just need a map and tokens,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I do think that you're, if I can pontificate for just a moment, I do think that you are very much right about the merger of Roll20 and DM's Guild and what that's going to do to the space, like kind of in general. We don't know how it's going to impact us because we don't really interact with Roll20 that much. We're curious to go ahead and see how the open game license is going to affect as this evolution goes on and everything like that. Mm-hmm. But I remember when we did our episode on that merger, one thing that we talked about a lot was how there is very clearly a line drawn through the digital marketing of D&D right now, right? You've got DM's Guild and Roll20 on one side of the line, and you've got WotC proper and D&D Beyond on the other side of the line. And we're curious to see
between WotC and DM's Guild.
Yeah, like how is that? Would any of us be surprised if all of a sudden the license that DM's Guild has to distribute things that are in kind of the expanded open game license, would any of us be surprised if all of a sudden DM's Guild having that license goes away and D&D Beyond gets it instead, and all of their homebrew content is now on D&D Beyond. All the D&D, all the homebrew content that can be like branded specific is now on WotC's own platform. I would not be horribly surprised to go ahead and see that happen, and it would be a massive shakeup on the One Bookshelf and DM's Guild side of things.
I think, just to counter pontificate, I think that's less likely, because why reinvent the horse? Why reinvent the wheel? They already have DM's Guild. They effectively, even though they don't own it, make a significant amount of money off of it based on the contracting and the royalties. Positive. And DM's Guild is already running that for them. I would see this more as a possible four-way conglomerate that's kind of working its way around the horn, because you got WotC attached this way. So what if instead this license also gets extended to Roll20, as they're now one company? Roll20 becomes the lead VTT for D&D, because all of its, and there's already a Google extension that connects D&D Beyond to Roll20.
Roll20,
so that you can roll in D&D Beyond and have all of your effects come up in game in Roll20.
Love it.
I
it
see
works
those links
great.
getting stronger. I'd like to see instead WotC put out stuff towards all of the VTTs, because some of the other ones are great. But I think those connections growing stronger, and this is going to become the four-way powerhouse.
Glenn, I think you're probably on target there. Just knowing how, once these licenses are doled out, it's really hard to put that genie back in the bottle.
I think there's also a real incentive to draw in. So different company, but we've done some interviews with Free League. Right. And I think one of the most genius things they've done is put out that open license and allow content creators. There's so many people out there. And if you're, from a business, if they're taking a little piece, right, and it's become a lot easier for people to publish homebrew. And I just think it's a great, it gets people playing their games, right? Because if you're going to play a homebrew, you need the core rule books, right? So it's always going to come back to that. If someone's got a really great setting or a really great character class, you're still playing it in that setting you're selling.
Right. And every one of those content creators, when they promote their products, are advertising your game for you. And bringing new players to your game for you. I mean, it's brilliant.
I would concur, and I would say we all need to shout this to Kevin Symbiota a lot, because he hasn't figured it out. The way to make Rifts and Palladium better would be get an open game license so we can create for it. The shit I will put out for that game in an instant. I could create mountains. I could double his books in probably 3 years if I put my mind to it. Because I've got so much pent up over the years. All he's got to do is throw me an open game license.
I have never understood why he was so closed. He has such a beautiful world. It's ripe for creation, right? Unlimited potential.
Chaos, and it doesn't really, and all of the pieces don't fit together really well, but literally you could be anything you want.
I just joked in the Three Galaxies, you could have in one party a colonist and a cosmonite. There's nothing to stop that level of imbalance, but
and you can't write rules for a combat that could contain a mounted knight with a lance, and a Veritech fighter moving at Mach 5. There's no way to write rules for that. So there's naturally some clunk, and you just have to accept that about Rifts.
And can I just say to Matt, your point about Free League, boy, how great must it be to be Free League right now with everything that
every AP that they've been grabbing
being gold. Like, we played the Aliens RPG last October with some friends of the show.
Great time.
Such a great game. Like,
that was our launch.
Oh my God, so good. Like, so good. And then now they've got Blade Runner, they've got the Lord of the Rings. Like, oh my God. Like, that's got to be like the sweetest gig in the world right now, to be working for Free League and taking all this IP. Like,
I would go so far as to say, if somebody were to ask, if I were to listen to one AP from Tabletop Journeys, what's the one you would point to? I would point to our Halloween episode and the Aliens game from last year. It was amazing and on point. All of them are good. That was a whole different level of good.
Yeah.
But I will say this about the merger, and I'm going to throw a little fly in the ointment, and then we can move on to other topics. Is this? I do think Hasbro, because they own WotC, and it's not about what Perkins and Crawford and those guys
Charlie
feel
Crawford
or
and-
want, as they are over their piece, and their piece now includes D&D Beyond and connects with DM's Guild. Hasbro's a big company that makes deals that don't give a about fans. And my concern is that they don't use their market weight to push their weight to cause some kind of, I guess we'll see who blinks moment. Because my fear, my business mind tells me that's what I see coming. What you were talking about is a great possible future. My business mind seeing some of the things Hasbro has done in the past with their IPs and how they deal with other companies using their IPs. And right now, D&D is just that. It's an IP that Hasbro owns. They like to push their weight.
But Hasbro also has to accept
see
that
Hickman and
D&D
Weiss.
is an IP that they own, but it has a fan base based on shared and community created content. And they're smart enough to know that they can't turn their back on that with WotC, or they'll lose that fan base.
We live in such a fickle fan base.
Yeah, but we also are in a bit of a fishbowl. As big as the D&D fan base is, which is huge compared to other role-playing games, it is not big compared to Hasbro's portfolio. It is a portion of Hasbro's portfolio. It is a good performing portion of their portfolio, but it doesn't, I don't believe they hit double digits as a percentage of Hasbro's net earnings. Or
regardless, if you're going to run a business and you have a leg of that business and this is how its business model works and it produces income.
Right. You're correct. But Hasbro's business model, they do things that are a bit different.
All right. Hasbro is the new Skynet. It's evil. I get it.
I've been a fan of Monopoly for a long time.
I'm seeing how you were defying logic and spinning back into the fray. So.
But at the same time, that is my fear. I hope it goes the other way. But I always say I hope they don't drag us to a point of we'll see who blinks kind of moment.
Yeah, I agree. I hope it doesn't go that route, but yeah, you never do know. But you know what? I welcome a little bit of chaos sometimes. Sometimes
all the time.
It's good. Well, it's true. It's good to shake things up, and talking about Free League, and then of course Stockholm Cartel with like Morkborg and Cyborg and all that, and I love that kind of their whole mindset where there's okay, you want to create content for it, go for it. We don't want a dime. Just don't do offensive shit with it, and you're cool with us.
Yep.
And that to me is the whole this whole punk rock mindset or death metal or whatever you call it, of kind of just DIY and just take this thing we make and you make it yours and have fun with it. And you can see like in the Kickstarters, there's like it seems like every week there's a new Morkborg compatible Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And they're like you, they're charging just a few bucks. And people are eating it up. They'll back like every single one, and maybe by the end of the year they've spent like $100, but each product is like yours only costs them like $12.
Sure, yeah.
But people want content and people want choices, like this idea of the subclasses, right? So everybody wants that adventure, that story to be theirs, right? And so, you start with like, well, here are these classes, and they're very like, oh, well, you're the fighter. Oh, I'm the fighter too. And then you add like feats, or you add like different subclasses, and little by little, you're able to really find that gameplay that's yours, right? That speaks to you. And so people love content, right? People are always looking. I know, back when we used to have to buy it, it came out every now and then. You have to go find it at the store. That's why we started homebrewing, because there just wasn't enough content to feed our appetite for stuff.
Right, those 2E handbooks, or is it AD&D, or what are those handbooks?
The second edition, the Rogue's Guide, Thieves Guide.
Those were gold. Like I don't know what happened to mine. I don't have them anymore, but those were he's got them.
They're in my other room.
The handbooks were fantastic.
Those are great because they have like so much detail. Like I really love playing.
Oh, that's the Drow book
rogues.
I saw up front, wasn't it?
I've got the Drow. I got a whole bunch of them up there. The Castle Guide.
Got that.
Yeah, I don't know if I've got
the Vikings book and Charlemagne's book were great. The Romans book. Anything you could do to bring in these other genres and these other things so you can play different fantasies at your table and different stories at your table is what we're going for. I'm going to borrow a phrase from a great creator with whom we've collaborated with, Splinterverse Media, and just say at the end of the day, our goal is that one piece of this book is somebody's favorite thing. And that's that's the goal. Whether it's the Beast Mind, whether it's the Correspondence Bard, or maybe it's one of the feats, maybe it's one of the backgrounds. It doesn't matter to us which one it is, but if there's something that somebody takes away from that, and this is the thing that makes their character sing for them, then we've done our jobs. We've done our jobs, and that's what we're doing. Those splat books, they're huge and they're thick. Like I took the Rogue's Guide and the Ranger's Guide at the time. Those are the two classes I played the most of it during second edition. And I might have found 2 kits in each that I would use and a whole bunch of kits that were neat to read. There was a good read. Those books were fantastic reads, but I might have only found 2 kits in those books, 3 items in those books, and maybe one other cool thing or spell that I might need. But it was worth it. I think those books were $20 at the time they came out, maybe, or no, 15 or something when they originally came out.
Yeah, $15.
Yeah, something like that. And that was big money, right? I was bagging groceries, and that would have at a Navy commissary collecting tips per cart to buy those books.
So paying nothing but tips.
Yeah, paid nothing but tips for carts, and I had to split that between my bowling money, my my video game at the bowling alley arcade money, because Pac-Man and what's the big game that had the 4 Valkyrie has eaten all of the food.
Oh, Gauntlet.
Yeah. Like, because that 8 quarters were worse than a laundromat, right? So I was splitting between all these different things and enough money to pay for a couple of hot dogs at the lake or whatever when we'd go swimming or whatever. But I would still take the time to get those books because those books fed the fuel for my game. Even if I was only going to use 2 or 3 of the things for my character, I was storytelling at the time. So it fueled the game I was going to run. Like I had other characters I could do. I could borrow something from my head for an NPC or for a background or for a storyline that I could use or play through. And that's what those books are for. And that's kind of what we want to do. We want to kind of recreate that feel of here's the world. Here's the multiverse. Take from it what you will. Make it yours.
That's beautiful.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to quote some of that in the show notes. That's some very quotable stuff in there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get that. I love the passion that you guys are bringing into this. This is you're. And the fact that you can do that, like as friends, collaborating on a project like this, and doing the podcast too, and it's great that this hobby is like, to me too. I feel like with you guys too is something that it's not just a hobby. This is like how I spend time with my friends. It's how I keep my brain sharp, and how I have fun. Like it's really it's got everything I need. I hope when I get to my dad's avec, if I'm in a home stuck somewhere, I'm still putting on a VR headset and rolling some virtual dice with my buddies. So
Virtually or otherwise, I can guarantee you whatever home I'm going to be in, there are several things that it's going to have. Karaoke on Thursdays, Elvis impersonators on Fridays, and D&D all weekend long.
I mean, we would, at the end of the day, we would love for this to be our full-time gigs, right? Like that's ultimately like, that is everyone's goal when they get into this business. Like when they start a podcast, when they start putting out content, it's like, man, if only I didn't have to do my 9 to 5, if only I could just do this all the time, and who knows if we're going to make it there where the three of us can go ahead and do this full time or not. But it's certainly, if it doesn't happen, it's certainly not going to be because we didn't work our freaking butts off, because that's what I love about these two, jamooks on the other side of the line here, is that like, I know that, we can't say too much about it because it hasn't come out yet, but we have been working our butts off on Glenn in particular has been working his butt off on a project that will be hitting press within the next few months here. There'll be all sorts of publicity. We were working with another game company, working on some content.
Mention the company. We're just not allowed to mention what in the book. So we can say we're working on a project with Splinterverse.
For Splinterverse,
writing for their new book that's coming out for Dragonlance, and that's about as much as we can say. But
that's about as much as we can say. But we pitched our concept. It got picked up.
It's been a whole lot of fun.
It's been a whole lot of fun. We've loved it. We've loved it. Right. It's been a lot of work. And Glenn has really been particularly working his butt off on that. And so it's like Glenn's been doing that. I've been keeping the podcast running. We've been putting the Kickstarter together. So it's like all three of us have kind of been like working to go ahead and have all these different streams going. Just absolutely working our butts off to go ahead and make this thing happen. So, which is so much fun and we love it, I don't know what I'm even trying to say there. So
good, Glenn.
Honestly, it was really just kind of okay, how can we cover all of the fires that we've lit? We're all working 100% putting the project together, but then as we've had to fully manage the Kickstarter as it's getting going and complete the revisions on the work, it's definitely involved a division of labor and some,
Josh has done amazing things behind keeping the podcast running, making connections with other folks, keeping our schedule in order, and making sure we're at the right places at the right time. Mike's on when they need to be on, that type of thing.
The worst.
Because I rarely compare myself to a cat, but herding cats like the two of us is not easy by any stretch. Similarly,
he's one of the cats.
That's fair. It's fair.
Yeah. Similarly, I've picked up part of the editing duties, which Josh has also served as teacher and trainer and question answerer and IT specialist.
He's our IT specialist too.
So, learning how to do some of the edits, do the rough edits on our podcast episodes has been great. It has taught me a lot. I would like to think that it is making it easier to edit me because I'm recognizing how difficult I am to edit. And so I hope I'm changing a few things about myself and the way I present to make it a little easier. You can be the judge of that. But it is...
Give him time. He just started. Give him time.
But I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying that work, and it's not something that even as things settle down, as we get through this project, I intend to let go because I like having my hand on a deeper part of the process. The face for radio is not just the golden pipes that need to speak. I want to be doing a lot more, and it's similarly as we went through phases of our Kickstarter and the Splinterverse project. Once some of the principal writing had been done and some of the idea writing had been done, and we got into the revisionary process, and as we're getting ready to start the playtest process, I've started working on some of the things that are going to be in those stretch goals. So I've got ideas that are ready to go. They're in the hopper. I've been kind of working on that a lot in between things. I've done a couple of the APs. There's a bunch of things that we're doing. I've actually started.
Another background teaser is failed Magic Initiate.
Yep. I've even started playtesting some of the things in some of my homebrew games. It's because that's a great place to do it because, some of my players don't even realize they're playtesting things, but I introduce a lot of things in my homebrew campaign, which I then can take and go. In fact, one of the subclasses that's in the Kickstarter has effectively been being play tested for over a year and a half now in my homebrew game. So it is seen.
Is that the Enforcer?
Yes, the Enforcer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is. It's so much so that there were some significant mechanics changes, not flavor changes, but mechanics changes, because I saw the things that weren't working well. When we finally got to the point where we're piecing this together and getting our first draft, I was able to say, here are the things that don't work. Help me make them better.
Right.
And it was a great place to start with because I had a lot of information. I think something like 12 or 13 different combats that the character had been in through 6 or 7 levels. Individually, so that made that character significantly better. That character subclass significantly better. So these are road tested, and will be road tested classes. None of this stuff is, hey, we wrote it yesterday, and here you go.
There you go. Right.
Good luck.
It's not a book of good idea fairies, right?
But it's amazing how often our ideas run into each other, though. Like, I didn't even realize the Enforcer was coming in, and the Thief subclass I was working on, the Ruffian, they're very parallel. It's like,
I didn't even realize that you. Wait, I thought Lee Winiga wrote the Ruffian.
No, he did.
Huh.
It was perfect symmetry.
Fighter and a fighter-based thief.
Yeah,
depending on what you need for your heavy.
Yeah. That's totally why I
have
figured.
So many parallels.
Yeah. That's totally why I
totally
figured
different
that
features.
Lee Winiga wrote it. They were so similar.
They are totally different features that work perfectly together. If you're building an underworld kind of campaign, an underworld urban campaign, and you want your fighter type to not be the person that's afraid of stealthing around, you want an Enforcer. And no part of that is no part of that particular fighter subclass, or every part of that has to do with the fact that I'm a huge fan of mob movies, right?
Yeah.
All of them. The Godfather, I just got done watching The Offer. Fantastic.
So good, by the way.
Fantastic show. Obviously, the Goodfellas, so sad that we lost both Paul Sorvino and Ray Liotta recently. But love those. Big fan of The Sopranos. I'm watching Many Saints of Newark right now. I actually paused it last night. I'll be getting back to it when we're off air. I built a character who is basically a mob enforcer. But I didn't want them to be stealthy pickpocket. So I built the fighter that could do that. On the other hand, Glenn built the rogue that could be the tough guy.
They can get into medium armor. They don't get into heavy.
Yep.
Yeah. So they can be your lightly armored muscle when you need.
They're gonna. Your average your average bad guy is not going to want to tussle with a ruffian long, is what I'm going to tell you. They have so much symmetry, these two things, and they were written in total isolation of each other. Like, they were not written knowing that the other existed.
And then on top of that, in that set of 3, right? So you've got the fighter and you've got the ruffian, and that in the Metropolitan set, the other subclass that sits on top of that is the paladin, Oath of Loyalty paladin, who's basically like the ultimate right-hand man, right? The Oath of Loyalty is not the guy. He is the guy that the guy sends to do the thing, right? And so you sit that on top of the muscle, you sit that on top of the sneaky muscle, and now you're kind of starting to see how these stories are coming together.
You just built a crew, is what you have.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. Yeah. We're basically building leverage.
A family.
Like that's family. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I can definitely see you got them kind of packaged into different flavors there. Now that you point that out, I can definitely see the whole mob relationship.
Yep. We couldn't say that. So that's why I said Metropolitan.
Metropolitan,
corrupt government with skilled influence.
Yeah.
Governments are not corrupt. That never happens anywhere.
Never happens.
Never happens. Except everywhere I've ever lived.
All right, Alex Jones.
Oh my God!
Ouch!
He got taken down today, and it was delicious.
I have not seen the
news. It was tasty. I haven't caught a Twitter blip on it, but it was tasty.
It was so good.
It was the look of shock on his face. It's like, I don't know why you're shocked, but it's funny that you're shocked. That's what I really enjoyed.
But good times. So I think that's really going to wrap us up. So last question before I let you guys go. Why do you think your podcast is better than ours?
Ooh.
Because there's three of us.
That's an awful question.
There we go.
Math.
I know. I make everything worse. My job is to make everything worse. So.
Perfect answer, Glenn. There's 3 of us and only 2 of you. So
There you go.
Yeah.
There's usually 7 of us, but I'll give you that one. All right. So,
I'm a big guy.
Show up.
you need to stand next to Matt and I.
We displaced a lot of water in the hot tub.
Yeah.
I once did.
You jump in.
I actually still do it. I mean, I am 6'4" still. I still displace a fair amount.
High five.
But I'm not 260 pounds anymore.
Oof. Yeah, I'm not quite there. But anyway, it was so great having you guys on. I had no idea where this was going to go when I had you guys on here.
Nobody ever does.
I love the kind of, this is great. I would have you guys on anytime to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about.
Like that project you can't talk about right now.
Yeah.
After it comes out, we'd be happy to come in and talk about our project.
I'd be willing to bet that we could probably get some of the voices that be over at Splinterverse to go ahead and come on and talk about it, because Jimmy Flowers does a great show. We've had him on our show a couple of times talking about projects that we're not involved in, and he's always a great interview. So
that's awesome.
I appreciate you coming on here and talking to Matt and I between 2 GMs. That's what we call our little interview show. And I've been listening to some of your podcasts, so I can definitely recommend it. There are a lot of conversations like this, a lot of great back and forth. You definitely feel the love.
Mostly one of us telling the other 2 that they're wrong for some reason. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Why are we circling around this again?
It's such a nice way, though. It's pretty enjoyable. It's fun. It's fun to listen to. The products sound great. It's such great timing to do some multiverse stuff. So I wish you the best of luck with that. And you should check out our podcast too. We're not too bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're not too bad. We're getting better all the time. But
excellent.
Well, I actually absolutely did listen to your Between Two GMs episodes before, because if we're going on a podcast, that's one of the things we do. We want an idea of what we're running into.
Who are these assholes? Why should we go on the show?
I was pretty sure before we got here we were going to be in for a pretty good conversation, that y'all would be kind of right up our alley, and we would ramble on for way longer than any of us intended.
Yeah, I'm going to have to walk the dogs pretty soon here.
Yeah.
But thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon, and then good night, everybody.
Welcome, travelers. I see you have found your way. Welcome to the heroic subclasses of the Multiverse Kickstarter. Which are your favorites? Are you telling stories of political intrigue? Perhaps the Metropolitans are for you. Are your tales dark, mystical, and mysterious as the Shadow Dwellers themselves? Or are you out for high adventure and want to take your ship to explore the lands of the boiling seas? Do you hear the call of the wild and want to dive into the Outlanders? Help us bring you these amazing subclasses, plus backgrounds, feats, adventures, and more. Fair time, friends, for legends await.